Ready. Play.
Learner Tien is somebody who actually a little bit it's very rare that Learner disappoints me in terms of the fact that, you know, he wins matches and he loses matches, and when he loses them, you know, he's done whatever he can to try and win it. It's not the same as, actually, funny enough, Daniil Medvedev. Sometimes I'm seeing him losing a tennis match, or Holger Rune for sure, and you're like, what are you doing? It's never quite like that with Learner. But actually in the first set in particular, I would say, more than anything else. And that's where the match ultimately, I think, was won and lost against Novak at the US Open. He really did let himself down in terms of his level and what I think he can do, and what I think he can do to potentially trouble Novak. That'll obviously come much later. That will come in the final if Learner can get there. And of course, if Learner Tien is to get there, he's going to have to overcome the aforementioned Daniil Medvedev. You can start with either of these two players.
Let's start with Learner Tien. I mean, coming off a final appearance in Beijing where he lost to Jannik Sinner 6-2, 6-2. Quick turnaround. He took a flight. I think he had a day off, and maybe he had another day to get used to the conditions as best as possible, and then he was right back at it. You got to credit Learner Tien. I mean, first year on tour, first time doing the Asian swing, and he's come through in 3 sets against Kecmanovic, who obviously was going to be a tough battle coming off of that final in Beijing. He was able to gut it out physically after losing the first set, and then Mute, another lefty battle, which was always going to be tricky. And I think he was actually down a set and a break.
Okay.
And he was able to recover it and outlast Mute, who, you know how difficult it is, and especially kind of running on fumes. But yeah, I guess that is the beauty of the Masters events, where you do get actually, I don't know if he had a day off in between those first 2 matches, but then he did get a day off. And
he didn't know. Friday, Saturday he played.
Right. And then did a good job.
Another
lefty. Yep. Takes down Norrie. And that was a battle as well, as he actually broke back as Norrie served for the first set, and then had to save a few break points in the second set, late in that second set. But yeah, I mean, well-deserved. His ability, I just think from a physical perspective, he hasn't once complained about the conditions. I mean, the kid.
That sounds like Learner to me. Yeah.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Just a level-headed kid who understands the assignment and is going to go out and you know, take what he's been training and put it to work in matches. I think his ability to kind of lure you a bit in those rallies where he's not giving you much pace to work with. If you do go big, kind of the backhand side, he's able to counter punch well. And now he's seeing a player who he just saw last week in Daniil Medvedev, where that was quite a battle, but ultimately outlasts Medvedev thanks to his kind of physical approach to the match. As much you want to say it's a retirement, it was, you know, a very, very physical match due to both players' play style. So definitely a good run to get here.
Yeah. And of course, he has a 2-0 head-to-head with Daniil after a grueling encounter that they had against each other. 5 sets wasn't in Australia this year. I think that Learner won in, wasn't it, 5 sets?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's certainly not just a bit of luck against Daniil, but I still think that regarding that match that it I don't know. I think everything's fine for Daniil, and I think he probably wins it. So there's some matches when you're up 2 sets and a break, and then a physical, I'm thinking of 5 sets, of course, and a physical issue evolves for your opponent, and we don't really read too much into it. But yeah, there are other matches when I think the physical issue, and probably the best example is Nishikori against Nadal in Madrid about just over 10 years ago, I think, when Nishikori is just so much in charge of the final that he just has to get over the line, which he's about to do, I think, before, unfortunately, physical issues prevent him from doing so. And Nadal got a lucky Madrid title among the other ones that were very much hard-earned. But anyway, back to Tien and Medvedev. Tien, by the way, is also another one with Zizou Bergs as well, and Mute as well. Some of these players that we've all been mentioning and seeing on our screens. Jaime Munar as well, who lost to Novak, and Pechi Peregrad. All of these, Diallo. I'm looking at Cam Norrie as well. So I'm looking at live rankings between 30 and 40, or 31 and 40. And there's 7 or 8 names who've all been there or thereabouts right now, which are all just fighting tooth and nail to get in that top 32 to guarantee themselves of an. And by the way, we're still several weeks away from that happening. So people wondering why I'm talking about it on the 8th of October, whatever. And we're still, but every point matters right now between these guys. And when there's no Yannick and Carlos to knock you out early-ish in a tournament, these are the times when you've got to be making hay. So yeah, and so Lerner is live ranked at 37, so very, very close to that golden top 32. I'm looking at people above him who I think would be vulnerable. I mean, Grigor Dimitrov is live ranked at 31, hasn't played since Wimbledon. Has he played since Wimbledon, Grigor?
No.
Don't think so. No. I think he was due to come back in Shanghai, but pulled out on the eve of the tournament. Cam Norrie is at 32, and I think actually Cam has done okay this year, considering I think he had a sort of 18 months of not doing okay by his standards. But you'd look at him as being someone that you could potentially overtake. I would suggest if you're Learner Tien, as we saw on the court in Shanghai. So yeah, there's 1 or 2 players in front of him that can certainly be overtaken. The problem for Lerner is I do think that Medvedev is it's just a couple of weeks, but he's playing the best tennis, which has not got a lot of competition for that. But he's playing the best tennis of the last 18 months, I would probably argue, maybe even more. You could go back as far as US Open 23. Yes, he made Indian Wells final of 24, but it was just a case of, you're going to be playing Carlos and then you lose. And that's how it is. Of course, since then, he's been, eaten up and swallowed up by other players, which is why he's well outside the top 10 now. But he, of course, was doing well until that Tien match last week in Beijing. And he's been, doing well again, beating Svitolina in the first round, 6-1, 6-1, but also a very good win against David Fokina yesterday, I think it was, in straight set 6-3, 7-6 as well. So yeah, it's not back. He's not back yet, but we've seen the coaching change as well, haven't we? So we're thinking, okay, things are looking better. And even he spoke about it. And I think it was an on-court interview maybe after that David Fokina match where he did just say, look, Gilles and I are fine, but it was time for us to move on. And I'm listening to my coaching team now, and they are helping me get through some of these matches. And yeah, maybe it was just a different voice as much as anything else. And we're seeing some of the fruits of that right now.
Yeah, no, there's truth to that. And even to say, John, I think Medvedev has played historically good tennis after the U.S. Open. I'm not sure if that's more particular to Asia, but
I'm just definitely he's had some good indoor swings. In fact, I think 2022 he won Vienna, I think, and that was after a rough sort of 6 months, rough by his standards. He beat Shapo, that's right, in the final in that year. And I think he got to, I'm probably going to say, the semis in Paris, Bercy. He might have also won another. But that was sort of a period of the year when, in 2022, when he lost that Australian Open, I think he had 1 week at world number 1. He lost in Acapulco quite, not badly, but Nadal actually just showed Medvedev, look, those 2 sets you won in Australia was actually an anomaly. The first 2 sets there, I'm better than you, certainly on outdoor hard, and he showed that in Acapulco. And yeah, he never quite really seemed to recover mentally until the latter stages, post US Open of 2022, and it was during at least this time of the year, October in Vienna and Yeah, maybe he did well in Astana as well. Yeah, he got to the semi-final before having a walkover. Djokovic gave Djokovic the walkover in Mosul as well. So yeah, sorry, in Astana. And then Paris Masters, I just touched on it. Actually, he went out in the round of 32, but yeah. And then ATP Tour Finals, he went out in the group stage. But yeah, it was a much better period of the year for him than was until that point. So hopefully I've made some sense there anyway. And then yeah, 2023 as well. I'm just trying to think. He got to the final of Paris Masters in 21 when he lost to Novak, having lost to him in New York, actually. Also, I haven't beaten him in New York. So yeah, he's fine. This is, I mean, basically a hard court anywhere except Indian Wells. And even Indian Wells, he still makes 2 finals.
Exactly.
You know, he's always
Exactly.
done
I was actually
kind
going to
of
say that. I
he's
think
had his Rotterdam moments. He's had his indoor back end of the season moments. He won the ATP Tour Finals in 2020, but I feel like that's the only time he really played well there. It was kind of a bit of a surprise because we looked at that tournament and looked at the players who were playing well, and Thiem was playing unbelievably. Thiem was probably the best player in that tournament. And I think win-loss record, Dominic Thiem's will read for that tournament in 2020. And there were wins against Nadal and Djokovic in there. And so it was just kind of teams to win in terms of the level that he was showing. But Medvedev wins it. He wins the final against Dominic Thiem, and that's that. But yeah, back to your point, Medvedev normally, there's a hard court. He turns up until the last 18 months.
Yeah. And yeah, he even said that. He's like, I know they're slowing down these courts, but I'm actually getting used to it now.
Okay.
So that's good for him. And I was actually going to mention, I mean, last week I'm thinking, okay, Medvedev's playing well. Could we get a Jannik Sinner Medvedev final? And kind of, maybe there's a surprise there. But once he went up a set and a break against Tien, I guess things broke down. I'm not sure if the physical problems started in that latter half of the second set, but
that's what I mean. Do you know what I mean when I say there's retirements and there's retirements, and
yeah,
it just feels as though that one a little bit of a fortuitous win for Lerner, I didn't. Yeah, I actually, for example, it didn't fill me with much. If that would just been a normal win in 3 sets, I would have been going into that match against Sinner, and of course the matchup thing would still be there, and of course I would still expect Jannik to win. But it would have made me think, you know what? I know we can't ignore matchups, but if you still just put matchups aside, you go, you know what? He's just beaten Daniil Medvedev, the number 8 seed, and Grand Slam winner, and it's a hard court, and it's 2-0 now, and so on and so forth. But in a way, it was like, you know what? Learner Tien in this tournament was a losing semi-finalist for me, and it just ended up being a losing finalist as it happened. I'm sure there's going to be Learner people, by the way, Learner fans in the comments getting mad at me now. And I love Learner Tien, but it just felt like it was a little bit of a fortuitous win.
Right. So regardless, he gets his chance to get some payback, and I think he does. Me
too.
For the one reason, from a tennis perspective, right? I mean, he just has the ability to finish points at a little bit better rate. But then also you think about the fatigue, the conditions, and I know I mentioned that Lerner hasn't brought it up much or talked about it much, but I mean, there has to be some wear and tear on the body after the last 2 weeks. I just have to imagine. So we'll see if that's affected. And, Norrie was able to at least string some errors out of Lerner, and that's kind of what his game harps on. So expect another physical contest, but I do see Medvedev coming through.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.